Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Soulful Abundance Festival. I'm your host, Elise Preston, founder of Be More Connected, and today I am so excited to be here with podcast host and brand astrologer, Leslie Tagorda. Welcome, Leslie.
Oh, thank you, Elise, for having me. I'm so excited to get to chat with you.
Yes, me too. And Leslie is a multiracial brand astrologer, designer, podcast host, and author, an Aquarius boss woman and human design projector. She calls herself a brand navigator as she guides spiritual entrepreneurs, social impact makers, and visionaries to become luminary leaders that they were born to be, using the innovative system of empowered branding and business astrology called the AstroBrand Framework. Since 2004, she has helped hundreds of entrepreneurs and social impact organizations clarify their brand so they can stop hiding and contribute their expertise in the world through their websites, social media, and brands. And I want to personally shout out Leslie and her business partner, Jeff, at New Moon Creative, because they designed the beautiful visual brand and graphics for this festival, which has made it just so exciting for me to be able to share this event far and wide. So welcome, Leslie, and I'm so excited to be able to dive in with you today.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Your whole festival is just so inspiring. I just love the whole lineup that you have and just everything about it. It feels so soulfully abundant. When I look at your chart, everything is soulfully abundant. It's like perfectly aligned for you.
Oh, well, I appreciate that from you so much. And I know I had a chance to share a bit more of your formal bio, but would love for you to be able to introduce yourself to our audience in your own words and share a bit about your own entrepreneurial journey and how you found your way to the work that you're doing in the world today.
Ooh, how long do we have? Just kidding. Well, I would love to share that because I think there's some details that we don't get to really share. So I am multiracial. I am half Filipino and I'm half Jewish. And it hasn't always been, and it still isn't safe to be Filipino or Jewish during this time. And so I don't often kind of share that background. And growing up as a multiracial kid in Hawaii, even though there are a lot of multiracial people and in general, diversity was really accepted, in my own individual family, on my Filipino side being too white and on my Jewish side not being white, like just not. And so from growing up until everything that I've done, trying to code switch and blend in and being told that my voice didn't matter has really affected the way that I've done business, and just like that low self-confidence, low self-esteem of not really understanding who I am. And so it's really interesting to see that pathway. I was, well, of course I went into branding in order to, like, how do we represent? How do we show up? How do we talk about things? And I went into branding and design. I had a business since 2004, but it wasn't until I started using astrology that everything really opened up. Because when we're doing when we're doing branding, you probably heard all the frameworks about you need to find your brand archetype and you need to find your colors and find your unique value proposition. And for most of us, we're just guessing. And you're like throwing spaghetti on the wall, like, why isn't this working? And the process takes forever until you find your lane or where you're supposed to be.
Yes.
But when I started using astrology, because our natal charts are such unique thumbprints of our soul, our imprint of our soul, and nobody has the same natal chart. When I started using astrology and applying it to all of the brand formulas, that's when I started having amazing results. And my clients started having amazing results because we actually had a map, like specific energies that we're supposed to bring through. So what I'm trying to say is it's through astrology that I really find my voice and have permission to be who I am and not have to copy or compare.
Yes. This is so powerful. And I definitely resonate with a lot of your story that you shared, also being multiracial and finding the tool of human design, and that being such a grounding and supportive tool with really developing some of those aspects of self that felt confused and being able to plug into more of that belonging and just that deep sense of understanding of myself at a soul level versus some of the ways that others maybe have been projecting on me or trying to fit in places where it wasn't a great fit. And so I would love for you to be able to share a bit more with us about the unique tool and framework that you use of this AstroBrand framework and how this can support us with really being able to more soulful abundance in our lives.
Yes. Well, as you know, and as most of your listeners know, like astrology is such a great tool for understanding ourselves and kind of like that psychological assessment of all of the pieces that make us up. And also kind of cosmic timing. Like, what are the big themes that we're supposed to learn? What are the big meanings that we're supposed to absorb at this time? And so, from this place of psychological assessment and cosmic timing, but then where other astrologers leave off, it's like, okay, great, I know all of the ingredients that make us me, make me me, but then what's next? And that's where I started to fill in the gaps. So to now make astrology this very practical tool that we can start applying and making choices in our lives versus just having this understanding and saying, oh, okay, well, now I understand why I have this great sense of self-doubt. But then, okay, what do we turn that self-doubt into? We turn it into mastery, self-mastery. And then where do we use that in our lives and our businesses so that we can show up as a person with expertise and authority, no matter where we are in our lives or in our careers, because we are always a master of our soul at a certain point, at any point.
Yes. Oh, I love this. That in this exploration of our natal chart, and as you said, it is this like unique imprint of our own soul, that it does provide us with very grounded, tangible, practical tools and action steps that we can take in our lives, because it is really beautiful to have a conscious awareness of something about ourselves, but it's often not enough just to know something, right? If we want to create shift and change in our life, we actually have to figure out what are the action steps that we now get to take with this new understanding or this new awareness.
Yes, and that's why I kind of love astrology and that intersection of human design, because there are certain things that human design is much more specific in just kind of the vehicle that we drive. But for astrology, for example, if you like, may I use your chart as an example?
Absolutely.
And so Elise has her beautiful Scorpio sun right at 29 degrees, and she was born during the middle point of a Mercury retrograde. So her sun and Mercury are together. They're inseparable. So thinking about our sun in our businesses and our lives as our creative force. And when we start to look at that Scorpio from this like deep emotional truth, deep authentic power, deep healing, right? I think I've seen on many of your posts as a Scorpio sun, I love to go deep. Well, yes.
Absolutely.
And then with Mercury just being able to not just express ourselves using words but feel ourselves and understand our emotions. And if you know Elise, which I know you do, you can see how she brings this in through her work. It's not just like knowing that I am this deep emotionally sensitive person, but now I'm using it in building relationships to others, building relationships to your soul, building relationships to your emotional understanding, and then being able to express that in our lives. And you are a beautiful example of how you are using your son's superpowers in your business.
Oh my gosh. Well, I just remember, so we actually had the opportunity to do two AstroBrand readings together, sessions. And I think the most powerful aha moment that I had from being able to really take that deeper dive look at my natal chart, because I was, familiar going in with my moon sign, with my sun sign, with my rising sign, and just North Node and South Node. But some of those other planetary placements and the relationships between some of those different aspects, it wasn't part of my awareness about my astrology yet. And the fact that I believe I have 3 planets in Scorpio in the 7th house of relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And the way that you reflected that back to me or shared that with me is that I am so capable of being able to really deeply help and guide and nurture and support people through healing their relationships themselves, relationships with others. And it's just so interesting because right around the time that we had that reading, I started having more people reach out to me to ask about how they could use human design as a tool to support them in their relationships, whether it was a mother and a daughter, or it was a couple, partners, and have been, diving more deeply into at work, being a guide around how do we have more like reciprocal and nourishing and understanding and like liberated relationships with each other. And that just feels like such an expansive place because it does feel like it comes so easily and so naturally to me. And it wasn't something I was like very consciously aware of or like plugged into before. So I just wanted to share that because it feels so aligned, and it feels so supportive to have had that just that like confirmation and that validation through this tool of astrology.
Yeah, that's so beautiful to note, to be able to pick apart that process, because like what you mentioned, there's like the validation of like the knowing what your superpowers are, and then once you validate that, then you get to make the decisions on what you're here to do and how you're able to express it. And now all of a sudden it comes from this very conscientious awareness, like intentional place, instead of going, oh, I think I need to do this now. It's like, I know I need to do this now.
Right. And just having that rooted knowing feels so more supportive as we're, stretching, expanding, trying on new things. And I'd love to be able to chat a little bit more with you about, for folks who may be entrepreneurs who are exploring how they can use astrology as a tool to have a more aligned approach to their brand. What are maybe some of those key places that they should be tuning into in their chart? What ways can you give them maybe just like a little bit of tools, a little bit of guidance in their process?
100%. So there's lots of shiny things in the chart, and you probably already know your chart really well. And what I love to have my clients and my customers do is to really focus in on our big three. So your sun sign, your moon sign, and your rising. And the reason why we focus on the big three is that all of the other planetary energies, Pluto, your black moon Lilith, your north node, your south node, everything is in service to your sun, your moon, and your rising. So your sun sign, like I was mentioning with Elise, this is your creative force. This is your superpowers. And once you understand the energy of your creative force, you're then meant to express confidently what you do, right? There's no comparing or comparison, like comparing or copying anymore, because you're like, as an Aquarius sun, I know that I'm supposed to be innovative and unique and a little bit different, instead of like denying that part. Or if when I was younger, I was like, oh, I'm so weird, people won't like me, but I'm supposed to be weird.
Yes.
And then, so once we're able to confidently express what we are here to do so well, the next step is then to create opportunities that allow you to work in that energy. Instead of always chasing the things that you're not good at, why not amplify the things that you are good at to make yourself even better at it? So just like how you did, Elise, all of a sudden you started noticing, and all the universe started sending you signals that, hey, you're here to help develop like healing in relationships, intimacy and power in relationships for your customers. So that's how the sun sign works. And then our moon sign is, you already know in traditional astrology, our intuitive self and our feeling self. And the patriarchy, of course, has told us that this is a very unsafe place to be in business, that you shouldn't have too many feelings, that it's not personal. And that is just garbage. Right? And so when we start to understand our moon sign, then our moon sign gives us insight as to what do we need to feel secure, because we know as emotional beings that in order for us to be moving from this place of freedom and faith, that we have to know how we need to feel, that we need to feel secure. Otherwise, we're making decisions based on fear, and that doesn't serve us. And then when we know what our emotional security is, then we get to tell people, hey, this is what success means to me, instead of like, thinking from capitalism and patriarchy, the media is always telling us what success is. Like, you need to be making this much money, you need to look this certain way, you need to buy this certain thing. And when we understand the needs of our moon, then we can like tune out all of those outside influences and get to what we really need in our lives to feel successful and to feel like we can step out and be recognized. And then our rising sign is also very important, because now this kind of is the how of what we do. If our sun sign is the what of what we do, our moon sign is the why of what we do. Now our rising sign is like, how do we package it all up? How do we lead from this place of authenticity? And so, Elise, with your beautiful Taurus rising, you lead from this place of abundance, of peace, of prosperity. And I'm laughing because like, how perfectly aligned is it? And our rising sign is also the way that people experience us. And so that's how we create that authentic leadership, because we're stepping into our rising sign stretch potential. There's a few energies in our signs that are stretches that feel really hard, that we have to like learn to tap into. Our rising sign is one of them. But people are already experienced. Like if you know, you think about back to your friends or your family, and they say, "Oh, like, what do you think about Elise?" And they're like, "Oh, she's so kind and so beautiful and so patient and so nurturing," all of those wonderful things. And you know, your Scorpio sun is going, "Wait, is that right?" And then your Libra moon is just like, "I just want to connect." And then, and then your Taurus moon is now saying, or your Taurus rising is now saying, let's just lead from this peacefully prosperous place, this place of patience, this place of love. So that's how they all work together. So our rising sign now is the how we take lead, how we initiate, how we contribute back. And so these three foundational energies are their core foundational energies that we're meant to master. And everything else just kind of adds a little bit of flavoring and specificity in service to our three core energies.
Beautiful. And I so appreciate you breaking that down and just giving us that understanding of grounding into the sun as the what we're doing, the why, what we need at that deep emotional level, and the rising sign as our how. How do we contribute back our gifts? And I know that for me, it's been so supportive to have this framework. And I also really appreciated how you said when we're able to tap into this awareness and this understanding, it supports us so much with not comparing ourselves to others or feeling like but really just amplifying what is already in us. What are the qualities that naturally want to flow and be expressed through us?
Yes. And almost in a way, this work of understanding ourselves is kind of like, it is part of the collective work that we all need to do to see our own parts and to break free of, if we want to talk about kind of capitalism and like the hustle, the need to always work, we get to break free in this really aligned way and like learn that, hey, we have permission to be ourselves, we have permission to desire what we want. And then going back to cosmic cycles, we have permission to rest and not always be on. And those are some pretty radical thoughts when you think about it.
Huge, so radical, so countercultural from the way we've all been conditioned. And as we're talking about cosmic cycles, I love for you to be able to share a bit with our audience about some of the upcoming cycles that we're about to move through, from Mercury retrograde season also to this upcoming eclipse portal.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. This is like this opportune time, at least, that you're putting this Soulful Abundance Festival together, because we are in this place of receptivity, to me, it feels like, in terms of with this eclipse cycle that this will happen in the middle of. Eclipse is on May 26th, and that is in Sagittarius. And Sagittarius is all about our belief systems and our vision and our highest potential. And because it's a full moon eclipse, this is like a super powered wild card eclipse where normally on full moons we're celebrating and letting things go. And when there's a total eclipse, that means that like all circuits are off. Where we get to, there's this astrologer that I love. Her name is Pam Gregory. She's this older English astrologer, and she talks about it as a defragging of a computer.
It all down.
Just like shutting it all down and like letting all the cache go. And so if you've had any kind of old belief systems that are still part of you that you know that you need to let go of, this is that opportunity to let it all go, to cry it out, to, dance it out, to shake it out, to tap it out, however you need to let it go, so that we can have this clean slate. And you're probably already feeling it. I know I have been feeling it. Saturn just went retrograde over the weekend before we were recording this. And Saturn is about our societal rules and our structures and that authority. And, sometimes I know you just went through your Saturn return, and Saturn has kind of a bad rap of constrictions and restrictions and limits. But when we start to reframe that Saturn just wants us to succeed on our long-term goals, then we don't see those restrictions anymore as limitations, but instead of clear boundaries that we get to focus and align our energy. And so, right? And so when Saturn goes retrograde, we get to rethink all of those outdated social structures that are living in our lives. And of course, the patriarchy doesn't want us to do that, to rethink what are our own boundaries. So with the Saturn retrograde and then the eclipse portals opening up to just let in all of this new possibilities, if you let go of your old belief systems. And then we have Mercury retrograde. It's like this divine timing that the cosmos has gifted us, because now Mercury retrograde, we have an extended Mercury retrograde. So it's a little bit longer than normal in Gemini. It's home sign. So this is like extra potent. Also, it's kind of like a Mercury retrograde eclipse, so to say, because we get to rethink our own truths. But part of Gemini is confusion. And so it's during this time, if we choose to work with the energy, and I hope that we all choose to work with it instead of against it, that Mercury retrograde, we get to decide, hey, on social media, are we following people that are really healthy for us, that believe, that share our shared truths? Or do we need to let go of things? Do we get to reflect on what is our new understanding and where we want to express ourselves? Like all of those Gemini topics about dialogue and communication and expressing ourselves, finding new pathways of doing that. And so you can kind of see how these three energetic shifts, they all feed into each other. And Soulful Abundance is filling in the gaps perfectly to really help you reframe and rethink what is possible for your soul, to feed it and nourish it.
Oh, that feels so resonant. Like that really just landed with me about how those energies are blending together. And I hadn't really conceptualized it that way before. I was thinking about Saturn retrograde, Mercury retrograde, eclipse a bit separately. So I love that you were able to weave those energies together and bring more understanding there. And oh yes, how exciting that this summit is landing right in this time, in this
perfectly
to be able to connect and support people. And I have a little bit of a personal question here.
Yeah.
So my North Node is in Sagittarius and my South Node is in Gemini, and that's the axis for this eclipse season. Wondering if there's just any astrological way to share around that, or what that could indicate.
Yeah, so the eclipse is happening at 5 degrees of Sagittarius, and your North Node is at 21 degrees of Sagittarius. So it's like, it's an in sign. The orb is not very tight, meaning it's not super close. But so it's not really impacting your North Node in this super okay, Elise, time to evolve. It's more of a subtle force saying this is your soul's potential. This is your soul stretch. You already know where you're going. How can we fine tune and just step into that belief more? Is what I'm seeing for you. But for you personally, I would say then let's look at your Jupiter, your Jupiter in Libra.
Okay.
And so Jupiter is the ruler of Sagittarius, and yours is at 8 degrees of Libra there. So there's going to be some creative friction in relationships that you have that are pushing you to because Jupiter in Libra is about relationships, and how can you better have a more healthy boundary and routine in your relationships that want to be up leveled. That is a bigger signature that's coming through for you this upcoming eclipse.
Beautiful.
Oh, and then, but you know what? We do have the new moon eclipse that's coming up in a couple of weeks in Gemini, and that's going to be sitting right on your south node in Gemini. And so
Okay.
the new moon eclipse, that one, because it's going to be right there, it's this new moon that's coming up in Gemini in a few weeks isn't necessarily one to create new intentions. It feels almost like more of a release ceremony. So to heal your voice, to heal how you speak about how you add value for you specifically, just according to your chart, is what I see.
Oh, thank you so much.
Of course.
That's going to give me a lot of really beautiful gold to like dive into for these lunar eclipse this week and then the upcoming solar eclipse. So I appreciate that so much.
It's a potent time.
I feel it. I definitely feel it. Wow. And so as we are chatting a bit about some of the kind of movement in the skies, some of the ways that things are shifting more broadly in the collective, I'd love if you could share a bit about some of your own current growth edges, things that you're learning about and exploring and shifting in your own life and spiritual practice.
Yeah, I feel a lot of structures are coming down for me right now, and I'm using this energy to rebuild. Recently I've had this AstroBrand framework since 2018, and I haven't yet. I'm now doing the deep understanding of how my wounding and what needs to be healed has really crafted and like supported what I started to create. So being able to come from this place of self-understanding, looking at the code switching that I had to do and all the hiding that I did and that kind of self-doubt. And what I'm now doing is connecting those dots into why I've created what I have created through the AstroBrand method and my teachings and my programs that I'm now developing to give it that extra meaning. Like, who is this really, really for? And so I've been working with a woman named Mariana Pena, and she's helping me develop my course curriculum in this way that is, I I don't even know how to explain it. I feel like through this process I've been healing and understanding myself even better in terms of I'm lost for words for once.
Wow.
It's been so powerful. So I think it's part of the healing journey. And I never set out to like, I'm going to heal myself in order to create new things. I'm such a future forward person in my chart. I'm rarely looking back. And I think it's this time that says, hey, Leslie, it's time for you to start looking back and reflect.
Yes. And I think that's such a beautiful and powerful reminder for all of us that as we are like looking to the future and building big and beautiful things, it can be really helpful to take a little bit of that time for reflection and introspection and just start to explore some of those questions that you were bringing to the surface around like, who am I really creating this for? And what do I really want to have sitting at the center of everything that I'm doing? And maybe it's eclipse season, but I've been noticing some of those questions really coming to the surface for myself as well. And just wanting to be creating structures that really do feel like they're in alignment and in integrity with what I'm really seeking to be.
Yeah. I feel like there's this sense of like, we have these expectations that we should have everything figured out, right? Like we should be successful at this very early moments of time. We look to our past experiences as failures or mistakes or things, but we're really in this kind of spiral process where we're always going to be revisiting those themes that are signatures in our chart. And so I remember I was mentioning that self-doubt earlier. For me, that comes from my Saturn being in the first house. And so before I looked at it as like this crippling self-doubt, and now I look at it from this place of self-mastery. And what is crumbling right now? All of these, I pretty much have built my entire life around kind of false promises based on what was expected of me. And now, as I'm dismantling those old things, even though my framework is still the same, I'm revisiting it from this other viewpoint that I think that we all get to get excited about, that this is the process that we all get to go through. Instead of like judging an experience as bad or good, we're like, oh, this breakdown, this terrible feeling that I have right now, like I can't even look on social media. Oh wait, there's a meaning behind all of this. And so that's what I'm personally going through right now in terms of like my spiritual edge. But if this is all for the better.
Yes. This is so gorgeous. And I so appreciate you sharing it this way, that, we aren't in our life journey moving in this linear process, that it is spiralic, and bringing it and tying it into astrology as well, that we're always going to be revisiting the places and spaces and themes in our chart that are innate, that are there for us as part of our karmic journey, and the things that our soul chose to be able to heal and experience and move through. And that because of a lot of the societal pressures and conditioning that have been imprinted for us, like we think that if we're revisiting things, that in some way that means we're doing something wrong, or we're failing, or we're not living up. But actually, it's not true at all. Like, this is a process that we all go through. So just being able to root into that, to remind ourselves of that, can just give us a little bit more grounding and ease on our journey versus some of that harshness that we can often place on ourselves.
Yeah. One of the things that I was discovering over this kind of healing journey work that I've been doing comes from this kind of the system that we live in, right? There's four crucial things that I've noticed that come through in astrology that kind of buck the system. So number one is about our intuition. And all of us are intuitive beings. And I'm always seeing in our charts these intuition cues, whether it's in our body or, sorry, there's a little bit of an echo. Okay, it went away. Whether from our body or our nervous systems or our minds or emotions. And the system has taught us to not trust our intuition and our emotions. And so what I'm finding is that astrology is giving us the permission to say, oh, there is my intuition. It's been trying to tell me things the entire time. And then the second thing about the systems is that we are expected to hustle all the time, and work and work and work. And you probably have worked with lots of clients who have suffered burnout.
Absolutely.
And why do we get to that place of burnout? Because we don't trust ourselves to rest. We've been taught that if we just take a break, that our clients will stop coming, or the world, or we won't make any money, and all these like kind of fear-mongering things that come through. And so when we start to look at astrology, it shows us that we are meant to rest. We're meant to rest. We're supposed to spend time with our family. And so astrology gives us permission to do that. So yeah, intuition, rest, and then that you have your own innate powers. Because so many of us have been taught that maybe we're not as worthy as somebody else. Who judges that? And then if we start to believe it, then it becomes our truth. So those are some big things that I'm learning that astrology can really dismantle in our social structures.
Which are so transformational if we really start to integrate these things into our own understanding of ourselves. Like, how dramatically different would our lives and even just like our interactions and relationships with each other be?
That is my dream, to see people who have maybe not felt like that they were powerful to find their power, to find their voice, and to live in alignment. That is such a vision.
Ooh, yes. Love this so much. And so the question that I love to ask all of our guests is, what does soulful abundance mean to you?
Means so many things. From an astrological perspective, there's so many indicators about our soul in our charts. Like our 12th house is the place of soul. Our moon is our legacy and our emotional and our intuition, that our soul goals. Our north node, our soul potential. Our south node, the gifts and patterns that we can get stuck in. So many things that represents our soul in our chart. To live soulfully abundant is to live our lives in alignment with the highest potential of our chart. We're always operating from our chart. Our energies live in a spectrum. Kind of, people call it like your shadow areas or your low light areas. And so as we go through our spiral journey, stepping up and living to that highest potential of what we can be, and not judging good or bad, to be able to rest, to be able to heal, to be able to nourish ourselves in this holistic way, and a place. And also, number one for me is living from this place of curiosity, gaining understanding before you make a decision. There's nothing has to be rash. Nothing is black and white.
Yes. Being able to live from a place of curiosity and embrace our multidimensionality. But like our moon gives us this bit of information, our sun, our Jupiter, our rising, our south node, our north node. I think sometimes we want to put ourselves in boxes and say, like, I am this one way, but actually throughout that spiralic course of our lives, we get to have many different ways that we express ourselves in order to connect in with, as you were beautifully sharing, like connecting in with the highest potential of our soul. Yes. Well, I am so appreciative of you sharing your time and your wisdom with us today. And just wanted to explore if there's any closing messages or words that you would like to leave our audience with.
Yeah, I see everyone as a luminary. And I wish that people could see themselves the way that I see them through their charts. Every chart fascinates me. They're all so powerful. And if you could just see yourself from that place, life would be so amazing.
Oh, so gorgeous. I love being able to end on that note. And I know that our audience is going to be so excited about learning about the ways that they can stay connected with you, and would love if you could share that with us now.
Oh, thanks, Elise. There's a few ways that you can connect with me. I have a podcast called The Savvy Luminary, Astrology for Entrepreneurs, where I go through the cosmic cycles and different things that are coming up in your business alignment. And then I also, if you want it delivered on email, I have a monthly business Starcast. And I'll send that link to you so you can share it with everyone.
Perfect. Yes, and I'm such a big fan of the podcast. I highly recommend to astrology fans in the audience. And so, Leslie, thank you so much again for sharing your time with us today. I know that this has been such a nourishing conversation for me, and I'm sure that our audience is going to feel the same. And for everyone who tuned in, thank you so much for joining us. And I look forward to seeing you again tomorrow for our next set of interviews. Be well, everyone.